Chapters 11 through 15 of the second book of the Kings, from the Holy Bible in Modern English, translated by Ferrar Fenton. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Mark Penfold. Chapter 11. When Athaliah, the mother of Achaziah, saw that her son was dead, she arose and destroyed the whole of the royal family. Jehosheba, the daughter of King Joram, however, sister of Achaziah, took Joash the son of Achaziah, and stole him from among the children of the king who were being murdered, and nursed him in a secret chamber, and concealed him from the sight of Athaliah, so he was not killed. He was afterwards hidden with her in the house of the ever-living for 6 years, while Athaliah reigned over the country. But in the 7th year Jehoiada sent and invited the captains of the guards and infantry, and brought them to him in the house of the ever-living, and showed them the son of the king, and instructed them, saying, "This is what you must do 3 days hence. Come on the Sabbath, and fix the guards to guard the king's palace, and relieve the guards at the gate, and dismiss the officers at the first gate, and yourselves remain to guard the temple from being entered. And let half of your troops come every Sabbath, and stand as a guard to keep the temple of the ever-living for the king, and form yourselves around the king, each with his arms in his hands, and if any refuses, let him be killed. You must also attend the king wherever he goes." The captains of the companies accordingly did all that Jehoiada the priest commanded, and taking each his men, came on the Sabbath. When they arrived on the Sabbath, they came to Jehoiada the priest, and the priest gave to the captains of the companies the spears and shields, which since the time of King David had been in the temple of the ever-living. And the infantry were posted each with his arms in his hands at the right side of the temple, and at the left side of the temple, towards the altar, and towards the royal palace all round. Then he brought out the son of the king, and put to him the declaration and the constitution, and crowned him, and consecrated him, when they clapped hands and shouted, "Long live the king!" But Athaliah heard the shout of the troops and crowd, and went to the crowd in the temple of the ever-living, and looked, and saw the king standing by on a platform like a judge, and the captains and the courtiers of the king, and many people of the country besides, who applauded with the courtiers. Then Athaliah tore her robes and shouted, "Treason! Treason!" But Jehoiada the priest commanded the captains of the guards and officers of the army, saying to them, "Take her out of the temple to the colonnade, and bring her to death by the sword. But," said the priest, "kill her not in the house of the ever-living." They consequently laid hands on her, and brought her to the gangway of the cavalry barracks of the king, and killed her there. Jehoiada next read the covenant between the ever-living and the king and the people, which was to be maintained by the people towards the ever-living, and between the king and the people. The representatives of the country went afterwards to the temple of Baal, and threw down his altar, and smashed his image with delight, and killed Mattan the priest of Baal before his altar, and appointed a priest from the orders of the temple of the ever-living. He then collected the captains of the guards, and the bodyguard, and the courtiers, and representatives of the country, and brought the king down from the temple of the ever-living, and conducted him by way of the infantry gate to the royal palace, and set him upon the royal throne. All the representatives of the country rejoiced, and the city was content, when they had killed Athaliah by the sword at the royal palace. Chapter 12. Jehoash was 7 years old when he was crowned. In the 7th year of Jehu, Jehoash began to reign, and reigned 40 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Ziba of Beersheba. Jehoash did right in the sight of the ever-living, as Jehoiada the priest taught him, except that he did not overturn the columns. The people still sacrificed and offered incense at the columns. Jehoash also ordered the priests, "All the statutory money that is collected for the house of the ever-living, the money from the personal tax, money assessed for lives, or which is offered by anyone freely who comes to the temple of the ever-living, let the priests take of it themselves, each for his salary, but let them repair the dilapidations of the temple, wherever they find it dilapidated." However, in the 13th year of King Jehoash, it was found the priests had not repaired the dilapidations of the temple. Consequently, King Jehoash summoned Jehoiada the high priest with the priests, and asked them, "Why have you not repaired the dilapidations of the temple? Cease further to appropriate the money as wages for yourselves, but pay for the dilapidations of the temple." Therefore he prohibited the priests from collecting money from the people, because they did not repair the dilapidations of the temple. Consequently Jehoiada the priest prepared a box, and cut a hole in its lid, and placed it at the side of the altar, at the right-hand entrance to the house of the ever-living. And the priests on guard at the threshold put into it all the money brought to the temple of the ever-living, for the builders, the stonemasons, and workers in wood and carved stones, to repair the dilapidations of the house of the ever-living, and for all that was brought to the temple to repair it. But there were not made for the temple of the ever-living silver dishes for the sacrifices, tongs, forks, any instruments of gold or instruments of silver, from the money that was brought to the house of the ever-living, but it was paid to those doing the work, and they repaired the house of the ever-living with it. The men also to whom was entrusted the money to pay for doing the work were not dishonest, for they did it faithfully. The money from offerings and the money from fines for offenses was not brought into the temple of the ever-living. It belonged to the priests. At this time Hazael, king of Aram, advanced against Gath to attack it, and captured it. Then Hazael set his face to advance against Jerusalem, but Jehoash king of Judah took all the consecrations that Jehoshaphat and Jehoram and Achaziah his ancestors, kings of Judah, had consecrated, and his own consecrations, and the gold found in the treasury of the temple of the ever-living and the royal palace, and sent it to Hazael king of Aram. So he retreated from Jerusalem. The rest of the affairs of Jehoash, and all he did, are written in the history of the events during the period of the kings of Judah. His ministers, however, arose and conspired and assailed Jehoash at Beth-milah in the vale of Selah, where Josachar ben Shammath and Josaber ben Shemer, his ministers, assaulted him, and he was killed, and they buried him with his fathers in the city of David, and Amaziah his son reigned in his stead. Chapter 13. In the 23rd year of Joash son of Achaziah king of Judah, Jehoachaz ben Jehu began to reign over Israel in Shomeron for 17 years. But he did wrong in the sight of the ever-living, and followed after the sin of Jeroboam ben Nebat, who made Israel sin. He did not turn from it. Consequently the ever-living was angry with Israel, and he delivered it to the power of Hazael king of Aram, and to the power of Ben-Hadad son of Hazael all their time. Jehoachaz afterwards turned to the ever-living, and he rescued him, for the ever-living pitied the distress of Israel. For the kings of Aram distressed them. Therefore the ever-living gave to Israel a relief, and they escaped from beneath the hand of Aram, and the children of Israel returned to their homes as formerly. However, they did not abandon the sins of the house of Jeroboam with which Israel had gone to sin. The shrine was also left in Shomeron. No army was, however, left to Jehoachaz except 50 cavalry, and 10 chariots, and 10,000 infantry. For the king of Aram had destroyed them, and made them like dust to the tempest. The remainder of the affairs of Jehoachaz, and all he did, and his courage, are recorded in the history of the events of the kings of Israel. When Jehoachaz slept with his fathers, they buried him in Shomeron, and Jehoash his son reigned after him. In the 27th year of Jehoash king of Judah, Jehoash son of Jehoachaz began to reign over Israel in Shomeron for 16 years. But he did wrong in the sight of the ever-living. He turned not from the sin of Jeroboam ben Nebat, which he caused Israel to sin. He followed it. As to the other affairs of Jehoash, and all that he did, and his courage, how he fought with Amaziah king of Judah, they are recorded in the history of events during the period of the kings of Israel. Then Jehoash slept with his fathers, and Jeroboam sat on his throne, and he buried Jehoash in Shomeron with the kings of Israel. When Elisha was ill with the illness that was his death, Jehoash king of Israel visited him, and wept before him, and exclaimed, "My father, my father! The chariot of Israel and its horses!" Then Elisha said to him, "Take a bow and arrows." So he took a bow and arrows. He next said to the king of Israel, "Draw the bow with your hands." And he drew the bow with his hands, and Elisha put his hands on the hands of the king, and said, "Open the window towards the east." So he opened it. Then Elisha said, "Shoot." And he shot. When he exclaimed, "An arrow of deliverance from the ever-living, and an arrow of deliverance against Aram. for you shall defeat Aram with a crash to destruction." Then he added, "Take your arrows." And he took. Then he said to the king of Israel, "Shoot at the ground." So he shot 3 times, then stopped. And the man of God was angry, and exclaimed to him, "You should have shot 5 or 6 times, then you would have defeated Aram to destruction. But now you have only defeated Aram 3 times. Then Elisha died, and they buried him when the raiders from Moab were coming into the country at the fall of the year. They were burying another man also, but when they saw the raiders, they threw the man into the grave of Elisha and ran away. When, however, the man touched the corpse of Elisha, he arose on his feet. Hazael, king of Aram, then oppressed Israel all the days of Jehoahaz. But afterwards the ever-living pitied them and showed mercy, and turned towards them because of his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and did not desire to desolate them, nor to throw them from his presence at that time. Therefore Hazael, king of Aram, died, and Ben-Hadad his son reigned after him. Then Jehoash turned upon Ben-Hadad, and took the cities from the hand of Ben-Hadad, the son of Hazael, which he had taken from the possession of his father Jehoahaz. Jehoash defeated him in battle 3 times, and recovered the towns to Israel. Chapter 14. In the 2nd year of Jehoash king of Israel, Amaziah ben Jehoash began to reign in Judah. He was 25 years old at his coronation, and was king in Jerusalem for 29 years, and his mother's name was Jehoaddin of Jerusalem. And he did right in the sight of the ever-living, not, however, like his ancestor David, but exactly as his father Jehoash did. Yet he did not take away the columns. The people still offered sacrifice and incense at the columns. When he had fixed himself firmly in possession of the kingship, he executed those ministers of his father who had killed the king his father. But he did not kill the sons of the murderers, because it is written in the law of Moses that the ever-living commanded, saying, "You shall not kill the parents on account of their children, and you shall not kill the children on account of their parents. A man shall only be killed for his own crime." He defeated 10,000 of Edom and the Amalekites, and seized Selah by war, and called its name Jokthal to this day. Then Amaziah sent ambassadors to Jehoash ben Jehoahaz, the descendant of Jehu king of Israel, to say, "Come, let us see faces." But Jehoash king of Israel sent to Amaziah king of Judah to say, "A bramble in Lebanon once sent to the cedar of Lebanon to say, 'Give your daughter to my son as a wife.' Then a wild beast that was in Lebanon passed and trod down the bramble. You have defeated Edom, and so your heart rises in pride. But go home. Why should you excite trouble and fall yourself, and all Judah with you?" Amaziah would not listen, however, but advanced against Jehoash king of Israel, and they saw each other's faces, he and Amaziah king of Judah, at Beth-shemesh, which is in Judah, where Judah was routed before Israel, and every one fled to his house. And Amaziah ben Jehoash ben Ahaziah king of Judah was also captured by Jehoash king of Israel at Beth-shemesh, who then advanced to Jerusalem, and broke down the wall of Jerusalem from the gate of Ephraim to the corner gate, 400 cubits. He also took all the gold and silver and the furniture that he found in the temple of the ever-living, or that was found in the royal palace, and his children for hostages. Then he returned to Shomeron. For the other affairs of Jehoash, what he did, and his achievements, and how he fought with Amaziah king of Judah, they are related in the history of events during the times of the kings of Judah. When Jehoash slept with his fathers, he was buried in Shomeron with the kings of Israel, and Jeroboam his son reigned after him. Amaziah ben Joash, however, reigned over Judah after the death of Jehoash ben Ahaziah king of Israel for 15 years. But the other affairs of Amaziah are written in the history of events in the period of the kings of Judah. When they conspired against him in Jerusalem, he fled to Lachish, but they sent after him to Lachish and murdered him there. They, however, carried him with the horsemen to Jerusalem, and buried him with his fathers in the city of David. The people of Judah took Azariah, who was 10 years old, and crowned him in place of his father Amaziah. He built Elath and restored it to Judah. The king afterwards slept with his fathers. In the 15th year of Amaziah ben Jehoash king of Judah, Jeroboam ben Jehoash, king of Israel, began to reign in Shomeron for 41 years. But he did wrong in the sight of the ever-living. He turned not from any of the sins of Jeroboam ben Nebat, who caused the sin of Israel. He restored the boundaries of Israel from Chamath to the sea of the desert, according to the promise of the ever-living God of Israel, which he promised by means of Jonah ben Amittai, the preacher, who came from Gath-Kepher. For the ever-living pitied the immeasurable miseries of Israel both without and within, when there was no ease for Israel. The ever-living had not yet decided to blot the name of Israel from beneath the heavens, therefore he rescued it by the hand of Jeroboam ben Joash. For the other affairs of Jeroboam, and all that he did, how he warred, and how he recaptured Damascus and Chamath of Judah to Israel, they are recorded in the history of events of the days of the kings of Israel. Then Jeroboam slept with his fathers, with the kings of Israel, and Zechariah his son reigned after him. Chapter 15. In the 17th year of Jeroboam king of Israel, Azariah ben Amaziah king of Judah began to reign. He was 16 years old at his coronation, and reigned 52 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Jechaliah of Jerusalem. And he did right in the eyes of the ever-living, as Amaziah his father did. Yet he did not throw down the columns. The people still sacrificed and offered incense at the columns. The ever-living, however, afflicted the king, and he became a leper towards the time of his death, and resided in a separate house. And Jotham the son of the king was chief justice for the public. For the other affairs of Azariah, they are related in the history of events during the days of the kings of Judah. When Azariah slept with his fathers, they buried him with his ancestors in the city of David, and Jotham his son succeeded him as king. In the 38th year of Azariah king of Judah, Zechariah ben Jeroboam began to reign over Israel in Shomeron for 6 months. But he did wrong in the sight of the ever-living as his fathers did. He turned not from the sins of Jeroboam ben Nebat, who caused the sin of Israel. Shallum ben Jabesh, however, conspired against him, and assailed him in public, and killed him, and reigned in his place. But the rest of the affairs of Zechariah are recorded in the history of events during the period of the kings of Israel. He completed the promise of the ever-living which he promised to Jehu, saying, 4 of your descendants shall sit upon the throne of Israel. And it was so. Shallum ben Jabesh began to reign in the 39th year of Azariah king of Judah, and he reigned a month in Shomeron, when Menachem ben Gadai of Thirza came to Shomeron and attacked Shallum ben Jabesh in Shomeron, and killed him, and reigned instead of him. As to the other affairs of Shallum, and his conspiracy that he conspired, they are recorded in the history of events in the days of the kings of Israel. Menachem afterwards assailed Thifsa and all who were in it, and its suburbs, and Thirza, because they did not surrender, and murdered all the women with child by ripping them up. In the 39th year of Azariah king of Judah, Menachem ben Gadai began to reign over Israel in Shomeron. But he did evil in the sight of the ever-living. He turned not from the sins of Jeroboam ben Nebat, who caused the sin of Israel all his time. Pul, king of Ashur, advanced against the country, but Menachem gave to Pul 1,000 talents of silver to be his ally, to secure the kingship in his hands. Menachem collected the money from Israel and from the officers of the army to give to the king of Ashur, 50 silver shekels from each person. So the king of Ashur retreated, and did not remain in the country. As to the other affairs of Menachem, and all that he did, they are related in the history of events of the days of the kings of Israel. When Menachem slept with his fathers, Pekahiah his son reigned after him. In the 50th year of Azariah king of Judah, Pekahiah ben Menachem began to reign in Shomeron. But he did wrong in the eyes of the ever-living. He did not turn from the sins of Jeroboam ben Nebat, who caused the sin of Israel. And Pekach ben Remaliah his general conspired against him, and assailed him at Shomeron in the royal palace, with Argob, and Ariah, and 50 other men from the people of Gilead, and reigned in his place. The other affairs of Pekahiah, and all that he did, are recorded in the history of events during the period of the kings of Israel. In the 52nd year of Azariah king of Judah, Pekach ben Remaliah began to reign over Israel for 20 years. But he did evil in the sight of the ever-living. He did not turn from the sins of Jeroboam ben Nebat, who caused the sin of Israel. In the time of Pekach, king of Israel, Tiglath-Pileser, king of Ashur, came and seized Aion and the meadows of Beth-Makkah, and Janok, and Kadesh, and Katzur, and Gilad, and Galilee, with all the country of Naphtali, and removed them to Ashur. Then Hoshea ben Allah conspired against Pekach ben Remaliah, and assailed and murdered him, and reigned in his place, in the 20th year of Jotham ben Uzziah. As to the other affairs of Pekach, and all that he did, they are related in the history of the events of the times of the kings of Israel. In the 2nd year of Pekach ben Remaliah, king of Israel, Jotham ben Uzziah, king of Judah, began to reign. He was 15 years old at his coronation, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Eosha, the daughter of Zadok. And he did right in the eyes of the ever-living, in everything as his father Azariah had done. However, he did not overturn the columns. The people still sacrificed and offered incense at the columns. He built the high gate at the house of the ever-living. But the rest of the affairs of Jotham, and all that he did, are written of in the history of events during the period of the kings of Judah. At this period the ever-living began to send to Judah Retzin, king of Aram, and Pekach ben Remaliah. When Jotham slept with his fathers, he was buried with his fathers in the city of David, and Ahaz his son succeeded him. The end of chapters 11 through 15.